You know I'm only joking, Kate. You know I love you loads. Loads to talk about today. But look, listen, I want to go to double A first. Man United yesterday. The media are playing it down, saying we were average. We were really quite poor. There was no real improvement. But United scored 4 goals. A brace for Xerxes, a brace for Rashford, a brace of assists for Ahmad. 4 points away from a European position as it stands right now. How impressed were you yesterday with the performance from Manchester United?
Just before we start, Culley, I'm going to say some good things about United players, right? So that doesn't mean I think they're going to win a Ballon d'Or or we're going to get top 4, but it just means in the context of the game, they were okay.
Appreciate that.
I'm just letting you know, just so next week you're not like, yeah, but you said this about, you know what I mean? I think it was okay. Yeah, it was okay. I think the first half an hour, 35 minutes, we were bang average. I think we actually made Everton look quite good when really, in reality, they're not at all. But I think that's my biggest takeaway from that, because I think under the previous manager, a game like that probably goes out of our hands and we possibly lose to Everton, because I wouldn't have seen a way back. But whether this is the manager now instilling this belief in the players to come back and fight and get a result at home, you know, the crowd were buoyant anyway. But I think, you know, they stood up to be counted. And yes, it's only Everton at home. Yes, we should be beating teams like this. And, you know, the manager come out himself and said, it was okay, but I think we were better on Thursday. And that's the things I want to hear. Striving for perfection, even though we know it's not attainable, so to speak. But he wants that every single game. And the 4-0 means nothing because it's about the performance. And the performance was good enough to get the 3 points. And that's the biggest takeaway. And the fact the players stood up and, you know, shown some ball, so to speak.
No, I agree. It was only Everton, and we beat Everton 4-0, so let's not get carried away.
There you go. If losers could beat Everton, then we could
exactly.
Yeah, I just thought it was interesting that sort of Sky Sports pundits sort of, whenever, I can understand some people love to use XG. Some people, it's not like their religion. And I think it does show an element of quality. Although I don't understand how he only had 0.7 XG when Xerxes scored 2 goals that I consider to be almost sitters. If you miss, you get laughed at. And I mean this is a general question to anyone who understands XG, how it's all calculated, especially his first goal. It was a shot from 6 yards out, an open goal. I don't understand why that's not and maybe it's my standards versus XG standards. I look at that as a sort of, 0.7, 0.8 worth of XG. It's an open goal from 6 yards out. If you're not scoring that, you should be thoroughly embarrassed. So I'm not even too sure how to that, if I'm being honest with you. But I think what it demonstrates as well is, and this is where confidence comes in, we got better as the confidence grew within the team. But we haven't done this enough this season, back in the last season. I know Rashford's goal deflected as it went in, but it was a great shot that was on target. You need players that can step up and score very good goals, score the goals that are kind of low XG. If you look at Arsenal right now, you look at Liverpool at the moment, they're not just scoring goal. I mean, the Gakpo's XG would have been very, very high because of where it was. But the actual setup of that pass from Mo Salah, and we'll get onto it later, threading the eye of the needle, it was out, in essence, it was out of nothing, because most people would never have expected the ball to have gone in that direction. And you need those moments of brilliance. And I've seen Sky Sports today talk about us and say, well, the stats don't look great, so therefore we have to ignore the goals. But I've also seen Sky Sports, when the stats have looked great, but we didn't score enough goals, kick off and go, well, you're average as well. And it's almost like they're already, and I understand why, we're the biggest team in the world, biggest team in England, definitely one of the biggest in the world. But it's almost, unless we've got really good stats and we score 3 or 4 goals and we don't concede, we're probably not, Staffy, going to get any praise during this rebuild process whatsoever.
We don't care for praise, bro. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not looking for validation from anyone. You know, we see what we're doing on the pitch. We can compare it to what we done on the pitch before that. Kula, you're already gonna interrupt me. It bothered you that much?
I said that's the spirits. I was encouraging.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
Picking you up.
It's used to Kula not having nice words about us. I thought he was upset there. But
never.
Yeah, listen, like Senor Amorim said, he said that he wants to do less interviews anyways, you know, because he doesn't care to talk too much to the media and to the public. He just wants to get on the training ground, and he wants to put these players on the pitch to win games. And that's what he's done the last 3 games. We haven't lost. Obviously, the opposition weren't that tough, so I'm not going to be shameless about it. But we didn't lose in our last 3 games. If you're being honest, we didn't lose since Ten Hag just got sacked, period. It's the last 7 games we haven't lost a game yet. And that's all I care about. I care about improvements and the progress. And I'm not gonna lie, it's really refreshing to hear your, I don't want to say manager because he's not a manager, he's a head coach, but it's good to hear your gaffer come out in press conferences and say things that you personally subscribe to, which was the complete opposite of what Ten Hag used to do. Ten Hag used to come out after a loss, and I'm like, what is this guy saying? Like, you're gaslighting me. I don't agree with anything you say. Versus now Amorim comes out and he's like, we have to not look at the result and look at the performances. And I love that because he's basically saying, I'm not doing results-based analysis. I'm looking at performances and I'm analyzing everything I see on the pitch. And I think that's what Double A was trying to mention about the Bodo Glimt game. The Bodo Glimt game, we won 3-2, but let's be honest. I said this on Friday on Straight Facts. I said it could have been 4, 5, or 6. Versus Everton, we won 4-0, but Terry, you remember I said on the Metro actually yesterday, I'm not gonna lie, it didn't really feel like a 4-0 win. We were a little bit clinical, but it's not one of those. To win 4-0, I'll be honest, you need to generate more than just 4-goal XG, and you just need to look at the game and really feel like you peppered the opponent. I didn't feel like we peppered Everton. We were better than them. They lacked the quality. They made a lot of mistakes, and we took them, but I didn't look at the result and say, oh my God, look at us 4-0. We're the best team in the world. No, I looked at it and I took the goods and the bads. And I'm happy that the manager does the same thing. And this is why it fills me with confidence to hear what he says. So if rivals don't agree with it, it's fine. It's their job at the end of the day as rivals, not really to give
with that game, Staffy, as well. For me personally, obviously, the goals were the least important thing. It's nice to have a +4 goal difference. Scored or a better goal difference than Man City. Who would think that ever? Do you know what I mean? But it was the clean sheet. It was his first Premier League game at home. It was the production of quality from certain players in the team. Xerxes looking like a decent player. Ahmad just showing exactly why every single Manchester United fan loves him and was desperate for him to get into the team all last season. I think there was, Anana again proving that he's doing good things and he's turning the tide from a horrible season last season. Even players like Mazraoui, I thought in that 30 minutes at the start of the game was pretty bad. Whether that's tiredness, whether that's whatever it is, he was having a bad game, turned it around and eventually showing his class of being a steady Eddie, a nicer way of putting it. And I just think, as great as the 4-0 was, it was everything that contributed to it that we take away now and start to see, yes, we actually could have an okay squad to get us through this transitional period with this new manager. He's still figuring out what players, because a lot of the players that started yesterday, we would probably say wouldn't be in our starting lineup going forward. But the fact of doing this to a Premier League team, go on, mate, go on.
Double A. Over the last week of football, what would you say? What would you say like the 2 or 3 main things you've learned about this squad so far?
They can listen to proper instructions. That's probably the biggest takeaway I'm going to take, because when they get coached properly, they actually can do good things. And I think a lot of United fans have long said that under Ten Hag, these players weren't as bad as what we were seeing. I just think there was an absolute breakdown between what was happening on the training pitch to what was happening in match days. And lost in translation, or he just wasn't good enough, or they just wasn't listening, didn't care, whatever it was, something was massively breaking down. So they can clearly listen to instruction and can clearly get instruction from very early on. And another thing is that they're not as bad as what people are making out. But we knew that anyway. The only issue I would have had, and I was saying to you last week about if we'd have started 4-0 wins on the bounce, I would have been worried then, because that looks like a proper manager bounce. Yeah. And that's what I didn't want, because I wanted them to show this manager who they are for real. And I think there's still some issues where he's seeing that from certain players, not hiding from certain factors in this game, and everything was looking rosy because it wasn't. But overall, mate, it looks like they're actually enjoying the football again. And I think that's why.
There was a lot of smiles on your players' faces yesterday.
I think
and in the crowd.
Yeah, you see it in the crowd, the players. I think something you said, Staffy, resonated with me a lot as well, is that the manager, it's performance-based analysis rather than results-based. However, he's also stated that he knows that without the results, you don't get the time to get the performances right. And I think that balance is key. I can also accept that I actually think we were better against Bodo Glimt than we were against Everton. I would agree with that. But that's why when we were on the show Friday, and people were trying to dig us out for not scoring more goals, I was relaxed about it from the perspective of there'll be a game that will come soon. I didn't realize it would be 2 days later where you're maybe not quite as good, but you score more goals, which is why the scoreline, although Liverpool's game yesterday is a prime example, that was more than a 2-0 victory in terms of the performance from Liverpool. It's just, uncharacteristically, that miss from Salah at the beginning of the second half. Van Dijk, if he was playing against Man United, would have buried all 3 of those goddamn headers as an example. And it could have been a very, very different day in terms of the scoreline. But the performance would have been absolutely no different had a few more of those goals have gone into the back of the net, as an example. So I agree completely. I like what he's doing so far. What we learned about the squad? I think not much that we didn't already know, if I'm being honest with you. It's just that it's been hard to analyze a lot of these players in the last year because there hasn't been the structure for them to play from. There really hasn't been the structure for them to play from. And the bits I've liked the most, little things that rivals may or may not see. I love the width we have when we attack, whether it's the kind of 10s drifting out wide, like the second half against Bodo Glimt, or whether it's the fullbacks. We were much better yesterday at stopping ourselves being exploited in the spaces left by not having a left back and a right back. I quite like that. And I'm almost enjoying the experiment as well. We've seen Rashford play as a number 9. We've seen him play as a 10. Ahmad so far is the only one who's played, I think, the same position from an attacking point of view twice as kind of the right wing back. And he did okay against Ipswich. He was excellent yesterday and he grew into the game. And look, maybe he was always going to do it, but it's little bits of decision making where I think Garnacho might have still done it. And I'm hopeful that he learns from this as well. But Ahmad could have shot for those 2 opportunities that Rashford and Zirkzee got to make it 3-0 and 4-0. And that's also where United have been let down so much in the last 18 months to 2 years. We'll be 1 goal ahead or 2 goals ahead. We'll have loads of great openings, but everybody tries to go for the glory. Everybody tries to be the goal scorer, and they try shooting from distance, or they try the really hard opportunity rather than just a simple pass through for a player for an open goal to kill the game off. And I'm hoping that isn't just something Ahmad is good at. I'm hoping that it's come from instructions and talking to the players, because that's what I want to. That's a big area that we need to improve on. It's only the first time in a year that we've scored four goals. The first time in over 5 years that we've scored 4 or more at home and not conceded. We don't do that enough. And that's why I don't really care that it's Everton, because look at who we've played in that period. Even when we played Bodo Glimt, you look at the underlying stats of that game in terms of passes completed, touches in an opponent's box. It's the best we've had since 2004. I know it is only Bodo Glimt, but we've played a lot of teams of their level and below in that period and not been able to dominate them like that. And I think you have to look at those positives and go, right, more of the same, please. So, yeah, I've been really impressed the first 2 games, 2 Premier League games, first 3 games. My feet are so firmly strapped on the floor. You could fill me up with helium and I wouldn't float, bro. They're so planted in the ground. I'm not going to get I'm not getting carried away, but I am going to call out the things that I'm enjoying and things that I'm seeing that I like.